court, and we got sued, and the insurance company wrote a check. And it was over 10 years, I think, reckon longer, we were under suit.
And I know that in the 5 years I've been here, I know that the planning commission several times attempted to review the
Yeah.
ordinance,
Yeah.
and there was conversation about meeting with the board and that sort of thing. The point is that I've been asked to enforce this until some other provisions are made. And I'm officially telling the board, what I can do is gonna be limited. It's gonna be very difficult to enforce this if more projects come in, or bigger projects come in, or several more projects like we've been seeing come in. Something's gonna snag, and it's gonna cause us a problem. Murphy's waiting in
Well,
line.
it's gonna happen, we're gonna, I mean, this
Right.
township is poised to develop.
So,
And this ordinance is important, it'll be more important, and I think it's a major undertaking, and a committee, definitely a committee. There's not gonna be a planning commission, there needs to be a committee review this, back with a complete set of recommendations. And it's not gonna be done in just 2 days, it's gonna be a lengthy process.
so here's a question for you. If the board appoints a committee, as the committee progresses, and they come back and they do periodic reports back to the board, when we get to that point, it looks like there's a foreseeable end. Why couldn't the board at that point initiate whatever type of planning agency or committee that you decide on at that point? And then by the time this committee's to the point where there's a workable ordinance, it can be, that planning commission or whatever we're gonna use could already be in place, or be being put in place. Instead of doing one or the other, start with the committee, and as it progresses, when it looks like it's to the point where it's gonna be concluding, or it's got something tangible.
Well, we have several residents in the township that have a great understanding of this ordinance, whether or not they would be willing to work on fixing it, I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's of interest to you guys, but there are experts in this planning stuff that you could have consult. I mean, you're gonna pay them, but they would certainly be able to roll through that and say, hey, this contradicts this over here,
And actually, they may
Probably
have
want-
another
probably
ordinance
wanna change this
that's better
definition,
than what we have.
Well, I mean, there are guidelines in the updated,
Yeah,
municipal planning code. I mean, there's at least something we can parallel, you know? But whatever you do, I don't know what the cost incurred, and this isn't a plug for these guys, but I think at least one of them should sit on that. If they don't sit on the board, they should at least be asked to come to, because they've worked, you know, I mean, what's so-and-so do? You know, well, we can call them next week and find out, or they can say, hey, you know what, we do work for them, here's what they do. Here's what, I think the resource that we
and it's
can
not
give by
entirely reinventing the wheel, because there's ordinances called PSATs, and they say, how many of them you want? You know,
Yeah,
right,
And
that's-
they'll send them to you.
that's generally what you do is you take your ordinances and look, I don't know if anybody reinvents the wheel, they just go and get it.
But it still would
Here's-
need to be tailored to
Sure,
your area.
absolutely.
Sure,
Here's
that's thing,
That's my
sure.
thought, because we've sat on, and we work in multiple townships and have done zoning and codifications.
Yeah.
With codifications and stuff. And you're right, you put a committee together, and that committee begins to work on the issues as they see it. And so that it begins to come together, and even as they come through the issues, you can't just say, well, the committee's saying so-and-so. They would be
Yeah, you got.
relating with the supervisor, okay, yeah, that's what we want or don't want. It does take some time to go through the whole thing,
And there
but
can be,
once it's done,
there can be as much back and forth in that time period before you make an end decision. You know, they kick you a recommendation and you guys say, well, we don't like this part, go take a look at that again and see what you come back, and then you get to that final line and you can say, okay, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna change this, this, and this. And that's when you advertise it, because that's when the public gets to come in and say, and they get to read it, make sure that you're not, you know.
Here's where we're unique, though. A lot of these places that we get a sample saldo ordinance from, that ordinance is gonna be designed to work in conjunction with something else.
Yep.
A zoning ordinance, a this, or that. When we look at ours, we're gonna have to look at it as a standalone ordinance, which is gonna mean some unique language and maybe some unique sections, maybe, you know what I mean? So definitions, okay, there, in our saldo, there's nothing about accessory buildings, right? Because that's normally covered someplace else.
Right.
We don't have accessory buildings in our, they have it in the building code, but it's not in any of our ordinances. That language isn't anywhere in our documents. Agricultural buildings, accessory buildings, that sort of thing. You know, I mean, that kind of language is gonna need to be included if this is gonna be a standalone ordinance. So you're right, there's ordinances out there that we can use as a table, but we're still gonna have to template, we're still gonna have to go through it. And really, I mean, if the board can address this is the heart of all the problems that we're having. And this is the vehicle it can be worked out through.
Let me just jump in and say, I'm not an expert in drafting this, so, you know, I can easily tell you, I have never done one of these. I don't know how many attorneys in the whole western Pennsylvania have done this. So certainly, we do want to reach out and make sure we have some people that are, I mean, this just isn't something you come across every day. This is pretty unusual. So I'm encouraging, I mean, I think that it sounds like what we want is as simple as possible, as reasonably, I hate to say small, but let's say not extensive, but we're gonna have to cover, in lieu of a zoning ordinance, which we don't have, this has gotta do it. So
Well,
I certainly
there's-
want people to know what they're doing.
There's other, we ain't the only ones without zoning.
Right, I'm
Absolutely.
just saying this can't work.
What does
In
West
conjunction
Finley do? Do you guys work with West Finley?
We do not.
Oh, that's a good idea.
There's,
Check with
there's,
them and see what
we
they
work
do.
out in North Bath? North Bath. I get mixed up because there's North
That's
and
what
West.
seemed to go.
Right, which is over in Cedar Hill. Now, I do know that they have a saldo, but I don't know how they operate it through. I believe they run it, I believe they review a subdivision, like you guys would.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that their saldo is as complicated as yours. Or maybe I haven't looked at their saldo, so I can't tell you how they operate. but
Where
maybe-
was that?
That's-
Scenery Hill,
That's
Yeah,
Cedar Hill,
North
which
Bath
is
Township.
North Bath Township, yes.
North Bath.
I believe that they run the subdivision, but I also believe that they operate with, I would have to think that their definition of what kicks into the saldo is probably pretty limited. Meaning that they pretty much let people do what they want. I know of a couple of different scenarios where they have multiple single-family homes on the same property. And the township, to my knowledge, didn't stop that. And I don't know that from doing what I do, I know that because I live in the area, and I know that there's multiple places where 2 and 3 houses on the same parcel. Now, you know, back when we all grew up on family farms, that was fine, you know, the parents let their kids build on their family farm, but everybody passes away, nobody beats that clock, so what happens when it's finally gonna get sold out of the property? You have to subdivide that house off, and that's where the problems lie, because it's usually down the road, which is why most zoning ordinances don't allow that.
I understand your concern about do what you want with your own property, I understand that. But what I want you to look at is that our ordinance doesn't allow that.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
that
that's right.
anything we do, hopefully what we do is going to limit the restrictions.
Yeah.
I'm not saying do away with things that we're responsible for and that we have a responsibility to provide. The law is there to protect your rights from my rights. What we need to do is, if we're gonna do this, we need to make sure it's done responsibly.
Yeah,
And this language isn't responsible.
And I'll add a caveat to that. When we first bumped into this, when it was the wall thing that you guys dealt with last meeting, that kicks it into a saldo, and that saldo is meant to be very tight and restrictive, and it is. So you don't want to just kick everybody into it. It's actually, I would argue that it's way more restrictive than anybody else's normal zoning anywhere else that has it. you know, their regular zoning ordinance. Because it's meant to be that way, as a subdivision land development type situation.
But we're using it as a catch-all.
Yeah, and you don't want to kick everybody into that, because like I said, in the beginning, you're gonna, they didn't, you know, if you guys aren't crazy about zoning, you don't want that, you don't want everybody getting kicked into that, because it's way more strict.
Okay.
Well, I think we could check into West Finley and.
And
Yeah, I
can
think-
do phone calls.
For now, I don't know how we're manning a committee, but if you guys could get together and maybe give us a list of what you've run into. When we get a committee, tell them, here's some of the problems that we've encountered.
How would we go about appointing a committee?
Well, typically, usually, you guys make a motion to advertise in the paper, and
Yeah.
residents of the township are welcome to put their names forward for a planning commission or something like, or committee, or whatever you're gonna call it. That's what we see in other places. And then you wait for applicants, and then you choose off of that.
How many people from, I mean, I'm looking at you gentlemen, how many of you should be on that committee as well, though? That's
Well, I don't know
So
that we need to
if-
be appointed members.
just as
Yeah,
contributors.
just like we're here now, I mean,
Okay.
he's here under the code enforcement officer
So it's just basically be a
situation.
resource, is that?
Yeah, we would be supporting research, right? Yeah, we would need to be part of the commission.
In the interest of keeping it operational, I would suggest to the board that you would be better served by 2 or 3 well-qualified individuals
As good a qualified.
as trying to do like a community sampling or, I really think that
Yeah,
that's-
that's kind of what I was thinking. 3 to 5 people.
Yeah,
I think 3 would be better.
Sorry to interrupt your meeting, I just need to get to the token machine, is that all
Sure,
right?
go on in.
Okay, thank you. Forgive me.
So, I think that. Let Arno tell him what's coming. I think that a smaller committee would be able to meet and make a quorum and, because they're not making any decisions.
Right, they're just reviewing this and,
Making some recommendations, and the ultimate, you know, they're gonna have to justify their recommendations to the board, and ultimately it's gonna be up to you guys to decide whether it's viable or not. If you don't like it, you send them back.
right, and their recommendations are have to be brought up in a public meeting
Yeah.
anyway, so the public gets an opportunity to.
it's basically just,
Interchange.
they're consulting,
That's
basically.
right.
Yes.
So, do you wanna advertise for volunteers, or does anybody, do we wanna have a board member on it, or you wanna do it?
So I don't know if I should be part of the committee, but I'm obviously, like them, I'm gonna be there. So you know you got me, so why not pick, you know, why not pick 3 people and,
Yeah. Ideas?
It's 3 and not. I know we have 2 very qualified individuals in the community, if they would,
so
if they would agree to.
if you were to say to John Yankovic, what would you do? I think I'd go smaller instead of bigger. You know what I mean? If I had 4 people that were, oh my God, these are the people to have, I'd make it 4 people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But if we're just looking for a couple responsible, intelligent, educated in this area people, then I say just make it a small, concise
Yeah, the more
group.
cooks, the worse it gets.
That's right.
So-
Cafeteria food proves that, yeah. So I think the board would need to make a motion to,
Yeah, well, that's what I'm asking, what do you guys wanna, do you wanna,
Well, if you know.
do we have to advertise, can we just ask people?
I think you need to advertise for
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we,
it. You can still ask people.
yeah,
Still ask people.
that we advertise for volunteers. Stress the volunteer part.
It's hard to do it. All capital,
Uh,
volunteers.
to serve on a Saldo Review Committee.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Second?
What's the deadline and
Um,
is the next
When's
meeting?
our next
too
meeting?
close?
The 21st.
So it's not quite a month away.
You're just advertising for positions, you just put it in the
I don't
paper,
think,
wait for
I
the
don't see why we
applications to
didn't do
roll.
it by then.
Wait for all the
They're gonna let
volunteers
you
to
know if
come
they're not.
knocking down your door.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't, if, even if you put it the next meeting, I don't think, like, you're gonna have a problem, like, you don't have enough space for all the volunteers now. You know what I mean?
Are you putting your name in, is that what you're saying?
That's not what I said, and that's why I hesitated to hold up my hand.
Well, we could still maybe get a copy of, West Village.
Yeah, in the meantime,
Different ones and see what the best way to go.
Yeah.
in the
Yes.
meantime, we will talk amongst ourselves. I'll start compiling a list of the things that we're finding to just turn over to the committee.
Yeah.
I'll get a contact, we'll reach out to the Finleys, we'll reach out to whoever we have to reach out to.
Right,
Yeah.
And try to
That's
get
part of the exploratory, yeah.
a sampling
Right.
for information to provide to these people when they've come in and
Yeah.
sit down.
okay.
So do we wanna say the deadline's by the next meeting, what are, the 20, what is?
To be appointed at the next
Or
meeting.
October 21st, August 21st.
And then if we don't get anybody, we'll extend it
You
again.
could say for appointment at
Yeah.
that meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deadline to be determined.
What are we saying?
For
Just
appointment.
put-
For
at the meeting,
appointment.
Whatever the next meeting is, so they'll know they have to check with us to be appointed by that meeting.
We're gonna say October
That's number 4.
21st.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, because you always have the guy out there like me that goes, I'll think about that.
We could even do it and just put any and all interest party, they can either submit their name ahead of time or just show up at the meeting that night,
Yeah,
like we tried to do with the
Yeah.
Vegas board, and
yeah.
throw their hat in the ring that night.
I'm sure they'll be,
I'll tell you what,
have to beat them off with sticks.
yeah,
Alright.
way out there, where's the land?
So that's step one. Okay, read the motion back.
You made a motion to advertise for volunteers to serve on a Saldo Review Committee to have them respond by October 21st for appointment at the October 21st Board of Supervisors meeting.
Sounds good. We got a motion and a second, right? How do you vote?
Tom,
Yep,
Kathy,
Yes,
Doug,
yeah.
Ed,
Yeah.
4 yes, motion carried.
so what do we do in the meantime for any problems that crop up?
We will operate within the document we
Yeah.
have as best we can. That's really all we can do at this point. I mean, what's come up, if you guys remember from the last meeting, there were things that needed reviewed, and not that the board isn't capable of researching it, but we had that stuff reviewed by our engineer. He reviewed it against our floodplain ordinance, against our saldo, and, I mean, we can pass the cost on, you know what I mean, if we choose to, or if it's excessive, but it's just an extra step. It's not always necessary, but we can use that until,
Yeah, we've been bumping along so far. So.
yeah, but it's been a little bit lucky. And I don't wanna jinx this, but it's been a little bit lucky. I mean, we
Okay.
gotta start enforcing our ordinances consistently, and if we don't, okay, so you guys have heard the term case law. Case law is when a judge makes a determination on a specific set of facts, a historic, specific set of circumstances. If the legislature doesn't change the law still stays the same. What we have here is we have found some exceptions, we have found some problems in our ordinance. We can find workarounds temporarily. And we've made some decisions, we have a little bit of case law, this is what we've been, but now we've identified a problem that we have a responsibility to address and correct. Mr. Hoffer's probably like pulling his hair thinking, oh my God, that is not the definition.
It's not.
I think you guys understand where I'm going with this. I mean, once we've identified that there's a problem, we have a responsibility to address it.
Yeah, it's kind of the now you know thing. Now you know it, you can't continue to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And that, if this is what the board's doing, that will address our concerns, my concerns at this point. I mean, there's a solution coming,
Yeah.
and that's really what I need to know.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, we're working on it.
There you go.
And we're gonna continue to work through the thing without really trying to hammer anybody. We'll work around it as good as we can in the meantime.
And that's all we have.
Okay, well, and I started to look through this a while back, and I found some things that I didn't like, but there's no sense going into them right now.
No, but I mean, if you can take a work copy and
Yeah,
highlight them, it's something that can be turned over to the,
yeah,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, every one of you,
turn
absolutely.
it over to the committee.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a good thing too. Cause that's what we find. You're right, too many chefs in the kitchen will spoil the soup, but the more eyes, the better. Like if you got an idea, a suggestion, and, you know, everybody throws their 2 cents in, sometimes a lot of
You get a
things can
dollar.
get done, yeah.
Okay. All right. We'll see what happens. We'll see, we'll have to hold a lottery to pick from the thousands of volunteers.
That's right.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Traffic patterns gonna be terrible with 70, all the traffic coming down.
Coming down here, it's gonna be backed up.
Man.
Yeah, right.
I would submit a letter,
Submit a letter maybe?
an
I don't
email,
know.
something,
Yeah, and even just, I
smoke
mean,
signal.
it doesn't have to be a letter, just, hey, I'd like to be in the running.
That's exactly what happens. You get a one 2-sentence letter saying,
Yeah.
I'd be like to be considered, that's all.
Yeah.
Name and address.
Make it simpler, better, just like, because you
Yeah.
don't wanna,
And qualifications if they want to, you can tell them that when they submit their letter, but,
just give notice on or before
Yeah.
right?
October 21st. Whatever forms the means.
Okay, we're gonna advertise it in the Observer, we have to. Can we get it on Facebook or on the website or something too? Okay,
Will be a crowd, I guess.
yeah,
They show movies.
Good.
okay. Anything else?
Mr. Hoffer could
We have a
request
short
an executive session.
Oh, sure.
If these gentlemen are here, I mean, they've been working all day, you think the board's?
Yeah.
Oh,
gonna
like
do
I
it?
have been.
No. Drive by your place all the time, no. Yeah, seriously, if you guys don't,
If
if
you
you
guys
guys
are
don't
done
have
with
anything
us,
else, they're gonna.
Yeah, no, thank you for coming. Thank you for your input.
Sorry I haven't met some of you guys before, but you guys, they have our cards, so if you have any questions on me, give me a call.
Okay.
I'm Pete, this is Harold.
Your card.
Yeah. I'm in trouble.
You know, even if you leave it in here, we're going in there, but.
You can be here.
Oh, okay.
Wrong, you're covered.
So you want them to stay?
All right,
You want them to stay?
huh?
No, yeah, we did.
Yeah.
So now we
We
need.
need a
to
motion
go
for
to
executive session.
Yes.
Okay.
The party.
I make the motion that we go to executive session at 6:59.
Oh, no, we'll.
Okay, I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second.
That works.
This is what you wanted.
How do you vote?
You wanted to show your house.
Tom?
Yep.
Ed?
Yes.
No, I'll be.
Yeah.
Yes, motion carried.
Yeah.
Grab this.